It was the second biggest earthquake in the history of Puerto Rico. The first one was in 1918. I was unlucky enough to be alive when this happened.
Puerto Rico still has not 100% recovered from Maria yet.
No.
And the earthquakes that keep happening are only exacerbating a situation that was already really bad. Bienvenidos, compañeros. Welcome to Unidos. Some of y'all may know already, and some of y'all might not know, but there was an earthquake about a week ago that kind of tore Puerto Rico to the ground a little bit.
Yes, even today it shake a little bit.
Yeah, you guys are still feeling some aftershocks.
Yes, and what we're experiencing is called a I forgot the name. Earthquake swarm, which is
Mhm.
basically a series of small to big earthquakes in a span of 1 week or more, depending the circumstance.
And while that fucking sucks, what makes it even worse is how Trump basically like illegally is withholding funds for that were earmarked to go to the Puerto Rican people to help them recover all the way since back from Hurricane Maria, but then also to the extra funds that were allocated to y'all to help in the wake of the earthquake happening, and it's something to the tune of $8.2 billion. Trump said that he was withholding the money because he was afraid of corruption within the Puerto Rican government, which is a fucking joke considering well, yeah, there has been, I mean, the governor of Puerto Rico is corrupt, but I mean, you can't have the people suffer for, you know what I mean? Like it's still he wouldn't do that for any other uh state within the, you know, any real state within the United States. So this is, in my opinion, purely just because Puerto Rico is an other in his mind.
Yeah, it is true.
It's literally, this money was already earmarked. This money was already agreed on by Congress to go to Puerto Rico. It should have already gone there, but it has been, for no real reason, like denied to go to the island. And it, to me, like that's absolutely fucking abhorrent, especially when a lot of that, or especially when a portion of that relief fund was being distributed through like water and food supplies. And
Oh,
from what I've seen, there's like whole warehouses of food and water just
I know
literally
where they
sitting
are.
there and sitting and rotting because there's no FEMA, there's no National Guard, there's nobody out there on behalf of the government to distribute those goods to the people that need it.
Yeah, that is true. And speaking of the water, they are. That made me mad because I know where it is. It takes me like half an hour to drive where those things are. So, and we nobody didn't know. That's the problem. It wasn't until somebody on Facebook was recording live, and it was a government employee or even just some random employee like your average Joe, like you and me. Gas. When the moment he found out, he called his friend, "Hey, hey, open the gates." So they open it and they start recording on live on Facebook, and everyone got pissed. Like, you telling me people were dying of thirst and everything while you have all these resources abandoned? Like, and not just any resources since the hurricane. So we talk about over 2 years it's been
Mm-hmm.
abandoned. And I thought when we first discovered, because this is not the first time, when after the hurricane we discovered all these abandoned food and water in the middle of a, well, not desert, but in the middle of nowhere, and people got mad. We thought that was it. There was no more resources, but yet somehow we discover even more abandoned resources that didn't even make sense because they're hidden away, where they can actually distribute to the people. So I don't know. I gotta be honest. Like, government doesn't work.
So I guess let's kind of walk it back so we can get it like on a timeline here. So after your piece of shit governor was ousted, like when
Yes,
he was kicked out,
yes.
what has been like the political climate? Like what has been the like what is the decision to replace that gap? Like I know that recently there was recently a person that was sworn in. Is he does he look better? Was he sworn in by the people? Like what was the process for determining who to replace the previous governor?
Okay, to go a little bit of backstory of the process, when we discovered, the Telegram documents, and we wanted to kick him out because all the crimes, homophobic, sexist behavior. So 1 million people went to his house, protest for 3 days straight to resign, which has never happened in the history.
Mm-hmm.
And when he eventually resigned, I already mentioned this in the previous stream with Swabble. Like, that's more detail, but to make it more simple, after we kicked him out, there was another guy who was supposed to replace him, who's supposed to be like the second in command, like vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that was the actual title for him at the time, but he only lasted for 3 days, and they kicked him out as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then for like a couple of days, maybe a week, can't remember the details. And they thought now our new governor is Wanda, who is she is the second ever female governor, although the circumstances are not, legitimate. But for now, the government is still the same. Nothing has changed. Uh, it's still useless. Wanda, she's not gonna run for the next election, and she's not allowed to anyway. Este, because to be to the election, you cannot hold the position to begin first.
Mm-hmm.
Este, so it had to be somebody else.
To me and a lot of other like first world leftists, it looked like with the ousting of the first piece of shit governor that the movement was growing there. So have like protests subsided against the government?
Since the kicking out the first governor, no, there's never been any more protests. And like I said, people are so, how do I say it, pessimistic in this point that they don't
Uh,
even care anymore. They
Are
just
there
want, they just like, okay, let's vote the next guy, and let's pray to God that the next governor doesn't fuck it up. That's basically the mentality for everybody. It doesn't work for me because I'm an atheist, so praying doesn't work. So, so it doesn't work for me.
fucking mood, man. I understand that. I usually call up my mom and I'm like, "Hey, ma, can you do me a favor? Can you like pray for this person for me on my behalf?"
Did it work out?
So yeah, did it work? Yeah, this time.
No.
But so what so like what aid outside of, the Puerto Rican bullshit government and the whatever trickle across from the mainland comes to y'all? Like, have there been like any like groups, like any leftist groups, any like I know that Rosa Negra was doing some stuff down there for a little bit. I'm not sure if they're still down there. I would imagine so. Have you seen anything like that? Any aid coming independently to Puerto Rico?
To my knowledge, no. But I know there is. Okay, I cannot say left wing groups, unless you count the independent movement. But the independent movement is like anybody of any group have one goal. But when it comes purely left wing, there's only two groups that I know of. One is anarchist, que es Acción Libertario, but it's losing its followers because it's a very small group. And when you see on media, the local news reports in Puerto Rico, Guapa, Telemundo, they only show you the riots, and like they paint this image of these crazy teenagers, making trouble, even though they're actually honest people who had a different perspective, even if you agree and they or not. Este, and there is another group, but it's more hated by everybody because there's a lot of history, but I'm not gonna go too detailed. But basically speaking, they were hated because they did a revolution and that failed miserably, and nobody likes them anymore. Basically, if the that was in the 19,
Alright.
that was 1950. That was way back.
All
If
right.
the and when it comes to outsiders, uh, I did find out, and this is more recently on the internet. I did find out that some secular groups and like the atheist community stuff like that, they give some aid to the Puerto Rican group because there's a humanist group in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
I don't know they even existed till I was driving, and I noticed a police car with the secular humanist logo in his door. So it's by accident, you know. So, pero,
So,
huh?
so right now, what is it? What so people are just so the community is just depressed at this point. Like, do
Yes,
they like? And they're are they honestly just waiting till June?
yes,
That's it. Just
yes. Just waiting for the next election. That's about it.
they're just waiting till June. Are there any? Are there any? Are there any like vocal activists? The like trying to lead the people that haven't been spotlighted in any way. Like are there any like thought leaders or anything like that in Puerto Rico right now that are trying to fill the gap and like
Uh, at the moment, at least like nobody. But there are people here and there, but they're mostly like in the status quo. But the problem is like we need all this aid, but thanks to the U.S. government, only they are allowed to give us aid. If any other country give us some, sorry, any other country they give us aid, we need the U.S. permission in order to accept it.
oh fucking A.
Yeah, that's what happened in the hurricane when Mexico gave us a power plant or generator to light up electricity. And we were like, oh, this is good news, right? That Mexico is helping us, right? Our neighbors, our brothers. So it's like, okay, we gotta have an electricity pack. Never appeared. A person is still hiding somewhere in the governor's house, waiting for some permission.
Do you think that Puerto Rico gaining its sovereignty would help the situation?
I gotta be honest, I truly do not know. It's hard to say because Puerto Rico, unlike Cuba, unlike Dominican Republic, unlike other islands in the Caribbean, basically, we don't have our own rich resources. We don't have alliances to basically anybody except, of course, the U.S. because we're a colony, and we basically have nothing to offer. And even if we somehow survive as independent, when it comes to living a comfortable life, it's gotta be a lot more difficult there than we have right now. The idea of Puerto Rican sovereignty is fringe. Like those, like a very small group of people, like the people who label conspiracy theories and stuff like that. They're very small, so I don't know much about the conversation. And the little I
Oh.
do know, and the little I do know, they want independence. I don't know okay, what's next? What comes after that? So far, to my knowledge, they want to connections and align with other Caribbean islands because if I'm not mistaken, there is like a Latin American Union thing, but in the Caribbean, like a Caribbean Union. I don't know
Yeah.
the name. Maybe if we could Google it, it could pop out. But there's that, and so far, we have to be very careful if that happens because the U.S. because we're currently in its territory. If they found out we're independent or trying to do independence, look at what happened to Cuba, the Pay of Pigs invasion, or look at what happened to Grenada back in 1982.
Yeah.
And you
I
basically
mean,
any.
I mean, true, but from the way that it stands now, it doesn't really seem like the American government gives two shits about what happens to Puerto Rico.
I'm not gonna say too loud because I have a neighbor who's a doctor, and como he
Mhm.
has money, has connections, almost every day. I don't want to say too loud, but almost every day I see him with a pickup truck with 5 huge gallons of diesel, so it can light up his mini mansion. While I'm in my house in darkness with a lamp, look like a witch. Like fuck you, doctor. Like looking in the window with a lamp is like fuck you. Yeah, like and he
That that is fucking infuriating. I understand he's a doctor, but I mean, come the fuck on, really, really, like
almost every day with 5 gallons of diesel. Like, can you bother share at least one?
what kind of aid or like okay, so what are the situations, how does the situation vary between like the mountainous areas and then more of the lowland areas?
Well, to my knowledge, the mountainous area I would argue is even worse because it's a lot harder to bring anything in the sources because to drive, to drive over there is hard. You have to memorize it. You have to be a local yourself to know where to go. If you don't know, you gotta be lost. It may take you hours to know where you're supposed to go. Like for example, if you're a local who lives in Jayuya or Punto Cero, which is the tallest mountain in Puerto Rico, if you're local, it may take you 10 minutes to drive where you want to go. But unlike me, who lives in the coast, it may take me 4 hours if I don't know the area. So, it's a lot harder because to put electricity, running water, internet connection, anything that is helpful for people, it's a lot harder because how do you say, the environment or
Mhm.
the area is very forested, so it's a lot harder where you're supposed to put the stuff that you need to. It's more wildlife over there, unlike in the coast, which is more urban. It's a lot easier to know where you're supposed to put your stuff. And people living in those areas, this is not an insult to them, but it looks like they live in the 1800s. Some of them,
What are you talking about in
like
the mountains?
yeah, they still live in the old school like technology lifestyle. Like they have it's like going to time travel over there.
Is there a native population left on Puerto Rico?
No, los Tainos, they're instinct. We Puerto Ricans, we are descendants, like mixed race. But when it comes to like pure blooded native Taino, they're basically all gone. As late as 1960s, 1920s. Whereas I heard rumors like it's been that late, but some people say like since Christopher Columbus died. But and there's this one woman who is considered the last Taino. I don't know if she's still alive or not.
That's also fucking depressing. What's your fantasy to get out of this situation right now?
I would like people to join forces, disregard their differences, like petty differences, like, and work together to make a new government. Okay, people gotta disagree with me because I'm an anarchist. So of course people gotta say, "Are you fucking crazy?" Like, pero at least temporarily speaking, a common cause, replace the current government and put something that is better, or at least better than we currently have right now. What may happen after that if we somehow achieve that goal? That I don't know. I'm not psychic, but I hope like me as an anarchist, I prefer anarchist society, of course. But I'm like the minority, like the very bottom in the list when it comes to different ideas.
All anarchists are in the minority.
Yeah, let's be honest. If a Puerto Rican says, let's hear other people's opinion. I thought they don't want to hear atheist, anarchist, socialist, nihilistic type of guy. It's like, no, not you. We skip. You're like, thank you very much. It could have been worse.
So yeah, so I guess like what organization, like I know that you keep saying like there's nobody, no voices are being amplified by the media down there, and like there's not a whole lot of public support for anything. But I mean, like, are there any organizations, like any, like there have to be like, coordinated actions of people like pulling together and helping each other, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, there are people, but I can't tell you that there's a group dedicated to that. But I know there are like circumstances, like a group of people helping each other, but not like a group that its main goal is to help the people. The only one I know is an anarchist group, Acción Libertario, which is but it's losing its followers. It's not active. They didn't do anything since 2012. So, only that one time they recovered when they were the first people who recovered the hurricane, but that's about it. Everything after that was silence. And and sadly, and the few people who we did have are either, moved aside, we're not gonna listen to you, or killed because there was this one union leader, a syndicalist union leader. I forgot the name. Este, Hey, something like that. He was murdered a few days before New Year. We don't know
this
who
year,
murdered him. A few days before the New Year.
like you're talking about like in just December, like just in 2019.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, like 2 days before New Year. Yeah, he was a syndicalist union leader who was murdered, and we don't know exactly why he was murdered. But people say somebody from the underground murdered him. But after that, people stopped talking about him.
That's so fucking wild. And like like I mean, I don't I to me, like it's just so, it's such like it's such a stark difference to hear, you know what I mean? Because I mean, you look at places like, like Cuba or Haiti or, the Dominican Republic, or I mean anywhere else in the global south, where like there's always some uh group or some bastion of, unity of the people that are there to represent the voices that are being ignored. And for Puerto Rico to just, for the people of Puerto Rico to just close their ears is just, I just like, I it's just astounding to me. Like
Yeah, I think the reason is this is more history, like history lesson, but it all started when people, activists, not necessarily left wing, but in general, regardless of political affiliation, who were radicals, and when they started a revolution. And there were two revolutions in Puerto Rico. One in the 1860s in Grito Lares, who wanted to make independence. It only lasted for one day. They failed. And then the nationalist uprising, which happened in 1950, which was led by Campos, who was the first Puerto Rican who graduated from Harvard University, and he was very influential publicly. But he got arrested, tortured. Uh, they did human experiments on him because they were poisoning him with radiation. But the
Oh,
government,
right, I remember that story. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and the government denied it, even though testing his body, yeah, that was radiation. Not just him, his groups. And the U.S. actually bombed. They used Air Force airplanes to bomb some cities to attack the nationalists. And after that incident, anything they considered radical was disregarded because we don't want something like this again, you know. And that's the same like the U.S. where you had the Contra Pro, like the FBI secretly trying to sabotage leftist groups. So the same happened here.
Yeah, and it's a shame that you guys, that Puerto Rico is completely isolated from the rest of, the the Caribbean or Latin America.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like there's anybody
basically the entire world.
anybody that would want to help you is denied that option.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. That's why I think that's the reason I think I became an anarchist, because after all these incidents and me reading, right, learning books, discovering, at the time, right, I didn't know any about these topics. Well, I did know about it, but I'm talking about like leftist perspective. And me reading about it, I'm starting to agree with them. It's like, yeah, they're making sense here. Like capitalism, hierarchy, and the state, they don't actually work. They're oppressive, and me, the moment I started to realize that, like slowly over time, I started to change my position, like to anarchist. It wasn't me like jumping to one extreme to another. It was a slow progress, but over time, went from like liberal to progressive to social democrat, and like, then a little bit of socialist, not Marxist, but Trotsky is for a little while, and then then don't. I know the comments are gonna talk shit about that. You feel, are you a Trotsky? Then over time, like left communists in general, like Rosa Luxemburg and people like that, and then slowly I became anarchist. you know, it's like accidentally became one. Just got this realization.
Just accidentally anarchist.
It's true.
I like honestly, homie, I didn't realize the situation was
Yeah.
as desperate as it is, to be quite honest. Like it's not like it honestly feels like this is like it honestly feels like the United States government is intentionally trying to make Puerto Ricans extinct. Like that's kind of what this feels like. It honestly feels like they're trying to they're like, oh well, if the whole island dies, then it's not our problem anymore.
I didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective.
We don't naturally have kings or peasants in our genes. That's why I love history, especially prehistory, because you figure out when hierarchy was established. Humans have been around for 200,000 years, and hierarchy at the earliest 12,000. So the evidence shows that our nature is egalitarian.